The wind on John's back flipped the collar of his coat up to cover his neck as he dug his hands deep in his pockets and lowered his head. 5 minutes had never seemed so long as they had now, waiting for Astrid to return to the door again after answering for a second to say she'd be right back. Sure enough, she was, reappearing and giving John a warm smile. She seemed to be getting along just fine for having just lost the love of her life a few months prior. John didn't say anything about her effective facade, though, as she led him towards the kitchen, where Klaus was dishing mini cookies onto 3 small tea plates.
"We've made biscuits,"
she said with her heavy German accent, gesturing to Klaus as he carried over the 3 plates.
"I was so excited to hear you were coming that I had to."
She gingerly grabbed a cookie and brought it up to her mouth for a small bite. John looked down at the plate placed in front of him and sighed. He might as well have some while he was all the way here and delay the conversation and comfort he had come for. After his first bite into the chocolate chip cookie, the corners of his mouth turned up.
"They're lovely."
That made Klaus smile beside her.
"How have you been?"
Astrid asked with genuine concern.
"What did you come all the way to Hamburg for?"
Knowing that he had come here for a reason, and he had yet to say anything about it.
"I've been fine."
He lied.
"I just came to make sure you were okay too."
It hurt him to pretend that he was only here for her, but if he was able to get her to admit her hardships, it would be easier to let himself fall apart.
"I've been,
She paused.
well, about as alright as I can be.
John gave a suspicious glare.
I don't know how you've been able to get through this, love."
Astrid sighed and glanced down at the table, moving around her cookies with her index finger. John had to resist the urge to crawl across the table and give her a hug long enough to think about if she even wanted to be hugged.
"Sorry it was such short notice,"
he said instead.
"It's fine."
Astrid knew very well that when grief came upon somebody, it wouldn't go anywhere anytime soon.
"I'm glad to see you. Don't worry."
John almost cried at that, so as the lump rose in his throat, he closed his eyes. When he opened them again, Klaus was scooting back in his chair and standing from the table.
"I've got to be somewhere,"
he said, and disappeared down the hall which led only to the bedroom. Within minutes, Astrid was walking to the other side of the table and sitting in a chair next to John.
"You're not fine."
She whispered, and John couldn't even deny it.
"I can see it in your face. I know when you're not fine."
"And what about if I'm not? You're not either."
Now, he was getting defensive about something he didn't need to be defensive about, and he wished he could just accept the help Astrid was offering him.
"If it makes you feel better, the sky opened up."
He glanced up in confusion, his eyes asking the questions he couldn't get his mouth to say.
"It wasn't raining, and when I came up to see him, the sun came out. Just for a few seconds."
"He went to heaven,"
John whispered.
I don't know. I don't know about any of that."
The hurt was creeping back into her voice, breaking through the smile on her face.
"I'm so sorry."
John apologized as if it were his own fault.
"I should have...
Don't pretend you could have helped it. It wasn't anybody's fault."
It should have been me."
Then Astrid went quiet, staring at him with the sadness in her expression.
"He was such a nice..."
John choked up a bit and bit the inside of his cheek, forcing himself to stand up from the table. Astrid held on to his wrist, muttering something in German and not allowing him to leave.
"You can't come all this way and continue to walk away from this,"
she said with a scowl.
"Why can't we ever talk about it?"
John exhaled.
"I don't know what you're talking about."
Astrid said something else in German and let him go. But as he had the opportunity to leave, he could see the frustration starting to revert her from English. He stayed to allow her to at least communicate what she wanted to. She then let out a frustrated sigh.
"Leave,"
she said.
"Es ist egal, nichts."
John hadn't a clue what she'd said, but he sat back down and took her hand in his own.
"What?"
she demanded.
"It's okay,"
he mumbled a bit slowly, hoping it would calm her down with something she'd understand. For a minute, he let the silence surround them until she finally leaned onto his shoulder and began to cry.
Tut mir leid.
By the way she said it, John knew that no matter what it meant, he had to hug her to distract her for just a second from the pain inside of her.
Sorry.
It's all right, love.
It only lasted a few more moments before she sat up and wiped her eyes.
I'm sorry.
She repeated, and John squeezed her hand a little tighter.
How long are you staying? I can make a bed.
There was a slight pause.
For you. I can make a bed.
I only have a day pass.
He whispered, gesturing towards his pocket where he kept his train pass.
I'm going to buy you one tomorrow.
She promised.
I want you to stay. Just for a night. Please.
Astrid,
Please! I don't want you going home like this. I want you to try one of Klaus's breakfasts, okay?
John knew that staying would be better not only because of breakfast, but because if he went home like this, he would hate himself for a week at least. He nodded.
I'll stay. I can buy my own ticket.
No!
Astrid professed.
No, you're my guest now. Let us go find you a place to sleep.
She pulled John up from the table and began to lead him down the same hall Klaus had disappeared to earlier.
Thank you for coming here.
Thanks for letting me.
She smiled to herself.
You're always welcome here.
Blue Hawk Audio Works.